chosen one pause for a moment and breathe. You didn't click on this message by accident, and you didn't stumble into this moment out of curiosity alone. Heaven issued an alert, and something within your spirit responded before your mind even caught up. There are moments when God interrupts the noise of life not to overwhelm us, but to realign us. This is one of those moments. Right now, beyond the screen, beyond the words you're hearing, something sacred is happening. You are guided here because your heart is ready to receive truth, not comfort, alignment, not illusion. You may be looking at your current circumstances and wondering how this message could possibly apply to you. Maybe your bank account tells a story of scarcity. Maybe your dreams feel far larger than your resources, and the gap between what you believe you're called to and what you see in your hands feels almost painful. But hear this clearly. Heaven has never used your balance to measure your future. Long before numbers ever changed, God already declared you wealthy. Not wealthy in theory, not wealthy someday, but wealthy in assignment and capacity in destiny. What looks like lack on the outside is not a verdict. It's a staging ground. That tension you've been carrying, the quiet pressure that sits in your chest, isn't punishment. And it isn't proof that you missed your moment. It's preparation. God doesn't prepare platforms first. He prepares people. And often, the preparation feels like waiting, stretching and learning how to trust Him when there's no visible evidence yet. But pressure is not meant to crush you. Pressure reveals what's being formed within you. It's shaping your discipline, refining your motives, and strengthening your spirit for what's coming next. And make no mistake, what's coming is not ordinary. Some of you are on the edge of a shift so sudden it will feel unreal. One season, you're praying for provision. The next, you're stewarding overflow. One moment, you're overlooked. The next, you're entrusted. This isn't random luck, and it's not about chasing money. It's destiny catching up to preparation. Stay with me, because this introduction is not the promise, it's the warning that your life is about to change. As this truth begins to settle in your spirit, it's important to understand what kind of wealth we're actually talking about. Because heaven does not define wealth the way the world does. To God, increase is never just a reward for endurance or a badge of honor for surviving hardship. It is an entrustment. Scripture makes this clear in Luke 12:48. To whom much is given, much will be required. That verse isn't a warning meant to intimidate you. It's a clarification of intent. God doesn't release abundance to impress others through you. He releases it to measure what you'll do with it. This is where many people misunderstand blessing. They assume money is proof of favor, when in reality it is proof of responsibility. Look at what happens when increase arrives without preparation. Statistics show that the majority of lottery winners lose everything within a few years. Not because wealth is evil, and not because they were cursed, but because they were unprepared. They received overflow without structure access, without wisdom, and power without discipline. They caught something their character had never been trained to carry. Blessing without infrastructure doesn't elevate, it collapses. And this is exactly why God moves slower than impatience would like, but faster than fear expects. Speed feels exciting, but preparation is what makes increase sustainable. God is far more concerned with who you are becoming than how quickly you arrive. He knows that money amplifies what already exists, and if foundations are weak, expansion only exposes the cracks. So if it feels like things have taken longer than they should have, understand, this delay was never disqualification. It was training. Heaven is not rushing you into abundance. It's fortifying you so that when wealth comes, it doesn't destroy what God worked so carefully to build. And this is where the hidden season begins to make sense. What once felt like obscurity, like being overlooked or left behind, was never accidental. It was intentional. shaping. God often does his deepest work in the quiet places, far from applause and visibility, because silence removes distractions that noise keeps alive. When there's no audience to perform for, motives are revealed. When progress isn't announced, character is refined. The hidden season isn't God forgetting you. It's God forming you where only He can reach you. That stillness you've experienced, the moments when life felt paused and answers seemed delayed, were not empty. They were spiritual rehearsals. In silence, God trains your discernment. In waiting, He strengthens your obedience. In obscurity, He teaches you how to hear His voice without the validation of results. Many people want the platform, but few are willing to endure the process that makes the platform safe. Stillness is where your soul learns how to remain steady before pressure arrives. This is why Scripture connects prosperity to the condition of the soul. In 3 John 1:2, it says, "I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers." Heaven does not rush financial increase ahead of internal alignment. A fractured soul cannot carry lasting overflow. God is not just increasing what you have, He is healing who you are. And in this season, your identity is shifting. You're no longer being shaped as someone who merely receives blessing, but as someone who carries it. You are becoming a vessel, formed with intention, able to hold, protect, and distribute what God is preparing to release through you. And as this inner work reaches completion, an identity shift begins to surface. You are no longer being prepared merely to survive or to receive provision for yourself. You are being transformed into something far more intentional, a kingdom financier, a living answer to prayers you may never hear spoken out loud. What God is shaping in you goes beyond personal breakthrough. It carries the weight of impact. Resources will flow to you, not just to meet your needs, but to move through your hands into broken places, delayed visions, and desperate situations that have been waiting for someone trustworthy enough to steward the solution. With that shift comes a reversal that may feel disorienting at first. The same people who once overlooked you will begin to search for you. The voices that dismissed your struggle will suddenly study your strength. Those who mock the process will try to imitate the outcome. This isn't because you changed for their approval. It's because alignment always attracts attention. And when God elevates someone, He does it in a way that exposes the difference between temporary noise and lasting substance. Let the reversal happen without explanation. What God is doing in your life doesn't need to make sense to those who weren't present in the hidden season. This is the moment where engagement matters not as superstition, but as agreement. If your spirit is stirring and you feel the confirmation rising within, you make it public. Type 777 as a declaration of alignment, a sign that you are ready to be trusted, ready to be transformed, ready to carry more than you ever have before. This isn't the end of the word, it's the doorway. Stay with me, because what comes next goes even deeper, revealing truths that only those prepared for responsibility are meant to hear. As we move deeper, you must understand this truth. Clearly, sudden wealth does not arrive as a simple blessing. It arrives as a test, often disguised as reward. From a distance, abundance looks like relief, like freedom, like the end of pressure. But in reality, it introduces a different kind of weight. When you are in lack, urgency keeps you focused. You pray with intensity. You plan carefully. You lean on God because you know you cannot afford not to. Scarcity draws clear boundaries. But when abundance enters the room, those boundaries blur, and temptation quietly takes their place. With increase comes choice, and with choice comes exposure. You are no longer just surviving. You are navigating influence, access, and power. And power, whether financial or positional, is not neutral. It acts as a mirror. It does not create new desires. It magnifies the ones that were already there. Hidden insecurities surface. Old wounds begin to speak. The hunger to prove something, the fear of losing it all, the desire to be admired, suddenly they have room to breathe. This is why wealth without maturity is dangerous. It amplifies what healing was meant to address. Scripture gives us a sobering example in King Saul. He didn't begin as a proud man. He began small in his own eyes. But once the crown rested on his head, unhealed insecurity turned into obsession. Power exposed what humility once concealed. Instead of stewarding influence, he became ruled by it, sabotaging the very destiny God entrusted to him. This is why heaven never treats wealth as a trophy. It is a tool, and tools in untrained hands can cause damage to others and to yourself. God tests character before expanding capacity, because sudden increase without inner alignment doesn't elevate. It fractures. What you are being prepared for isn't just possession of wealth, but mastery over it, so it serves the purpose it was given to fulfill, rather than ruling the one who carries it. And once you understand the weight that comes with increase, the delay you've been questioning begins to reveal its true purpose. What felt like being held back was never denial. It was protection. God often delays what he fully intends to release because timing is part of mercy. Delay has a way of purifying motives that speed never could. It removes pride quietly without confrontation. It teaches you how to wait without entitlement and how to trust without applause. In the waiting, ambition is sifted and only obedience remains. One of the most misunderstood truths about money is this: it doesn't change who you are, it amplifies who you've already become. Whatever lives quietly in the heart grows louder with resources. That's why obscurity is such a powerful training ground. When no one is watching, God observes how you handle pressure, how you treat people who can do nothing for you, and how you pray when there's nothing impressive to show. Faithfulness without recognition builds an internal foundation that fame can't shake and wealth can't corrupt. Scripture gives us a clear picture through the life of Joseph. He was given dreams of influence early, but elevation didn't follow immediately. Instead, betrayal came first. Isolation followed. Prison replaced promise. Yet none of it was wasted. Each season refined him for the one to come. The pit taught him humility. The prison taught him discernment. By the time he reached the palace, his character could sustain the authority his gift attracted. This is why your circle may have grown smaller while your calling grew larger. God removes relationships that would collapse under the weight of where you're going. Fewer voices create clearer direction. Stronger foundations require pruning. What remains may look minimal, but it's solid. And when influence finally arrives, it won't rest on popularity. It will rest on integrity, restraint, and wisdom forged in seasons no one applauded, but heaven fully recorded. And as the season shifts, so does the focus of your life. You move from chasing security to carrying legacy. This is where the nature of the battle changes. The fight is no longer about survival, it's about stewardship. When influence and resources increase, so does resistance. New forms of warfare emerge. Legal pressures designed to distract relational tension meant to drain you, and spiritual opposition aimed at clouding your discernment. These battles are not signs that something is wrong. They are confirmation that something valuable is now in motion. At this level, protection no longer comes from hiding. It comes from wisdom. Discernment becomes your first line of defense. You learn to read motives, not just words. Boundaries stop being walls of fear and become gates of stewardship. Not every opportunity deserves access. Not every relationship is meant to come with you. Wisdom teaches you when to engage and when to walk away without explanation. Peace becomes the signal, not popularity. This is also where success is redefined. It's no longer about staying on top, staying visible, or staying admired. It's about staying true, staying aligned, staying rooted in the values that carried you through obscurity. Legacy demands consistency of character, not performance of image. You are being called to rebuild what was broken before you arrived, to restore foundations that were neglected, to break generational cycles that limited those who came before you. This calling reaches beyond your lifetime. What you build now affects bloodlines, communities, and futures you may never personally witness. And that's why this stage requires clarity, restraint, and courage. You're not just advancing for yourself. You're carrying responsibility for what comes after you. And that kind of assignment requires strength that only preparation could produce. And at this point, the purpose of your increase becomes unmistakably clear. This is no longer about competition. It is about commission. Heaven is not positioning you to outshine others, but to outserve them. Comparison loses its power when assignment comes into focus. What God is entrusting to you is not measured against someone else's success, because it was never designed to fulfill someone else's calling. Your wealth is being tied directly to purpose, released in proportion to the responsibility you are willing to carry. You are being called to fund what systems overlooked and to restore what institutions failed to protect. There are gaps in the world that policies couldn't fix and programs couldn't sustain. There are communities where hope eroded quietly and generations adapted to survival instead of healing. This is where your assignment lives. The resources coming towards you are not random overflow. They are targeted release. Each provision is meant to meet a specific need, answer a specific cry, and rebuild something that was left unfinished. This is why your journey has been so intentional. God is not simply increasing your capacity to accumulate, but your ability to convert wealth into healing. Money in your hands becomes repair. Influence becomes restoration. Access becomes opportunity for revival. You are not the endpoint of the blessing. You are the channel. And channels don't compete with each other. They flow where they are directed. When wealth is aligned with commission, it stops being about excess and starts becoming about impact. Lives are lifted, systems are strengthened, and places long ignored begin to breathe again. This is the kind of increase that carries eternal weight, not because of how much is gained, but because of how much is restored through obedience. And as the weight of this commission settles in another test, quietly emerges one that has nothing to do with money itself, but everything to do with the heart carrying it. Success has a way of stirring unresolved wounds. When increase comes, so do memories. Faces from the past resurface not by accident, but by design. Some appear with smiles, others with silence, and a few with the same old resentment they never healed. Their return is not an invitation, it is an examination. The question isn't whether you've risen, it's whether you've been released. In this moment, temptation whispers softly. It urges you to prove something, to remind them of who you are now, to let success speak where pain once did. But revenge is not strength, and validation is not victory. The kingdom operates by a higher measure. True authority doesn't need to embarrass the past to affirm the present. What you're being offered here is not a chance to retaliate, but an opportunity to choose freedom. Forgiveness in this season is not reconciliation, and it is not forgetting. It is release. It means you refuse to let old wounds invoice your future. Bitterness is a form of spiritual debt, and no amount of financial gain can cancel what resentment continues to charge your soul. You don't have to reopen doors, but you do have to unclench your heart. Peace becomes your true power, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of alignment. When you forgive, you aren't excusing what happened. You're declaring that it no longer gets to define you. This is emotional maturity at work. And at higher levels of influence, peace is protection. It keeps your judgment clear, your spirit light, and your calling uncontaminated. In the kingdom, the strongest response isn't vengeance, it's wholeness. And just when everything seems to be aligning, when the doors finally open and the prayers begin to take shape, another voice may try to follow you into this new season. It doesn't sound like doubt at first. It sounds like humility. It asks quiet questions. Are you sure this was meant for you? Did you really earn this? But this voice has a name, and it is not wisdom. It is imposter syndrome, a disguised form of fear born from years of being underestimated, overlooked, or counted out. You spent so long being the underdog that your mind learned how to survive without expecting much. Now that abundance and influence arrive, your spirit must catch up with what heaven already decided. You may feel the urge to shrink, to soften your authority so others don't feel uncomfortable, to downplay what God has done so no one feels threatened. But shrinking is not humility. It is hesitation. And hesitation does not honor the process you endured to get here. Hear this clearly. You are not an accident. What you're stepping into was paid for in private obedience, unseen endurance, and quiet faithfulness. God saw the nights you cried and still showed up. He saw the seasons you gave when you had nothing left. He saw the times you stayed obedient when applause never came. This is not luck. This is legitimacy. Heaven does not mistakenly fund what it has not first refined. You were chosen, refined, and appointed for this level of responsibility. Stand in it not with arrogance, but with authority. Authority is simply agreement with what God has already spoken. You don't need to prove yourself. You need to occupy your place. And when you do, you honor not only the blessing, but the long journey that shaped you into someone capable of carrying it well. And as your confidence settles into clarity, another truth comes into focus: the reason your visibility was delayed. You were not hidden because you lacked value. You were hidden because your value was too sacred to be mishandled. In a world that rushes to monetize potential and package gifts before character is formed, God chose to cover you. Hiddenness was not rejection. It was protection. If your name had surfaced too early, your calling would have been negotiated, your integrity tested by offers that came with invisible strings attached. God waited until you were no longer for sale, until approval no longer controlled your decisions and validation no longer determined your direction. Only then could He trust you with exposure without compromise. Because influence without conviction is dangerous, and visibility without identity is easily exploited. What you carry needed time to mature in private, so it couldn't be diluted in public. This is why what's coming to you isn't contaminated provision. It's uncontaminated. You didn't have to bend your values, dilute your faith, or betray your convictions to receive it. This wealth is not a bribe. It is a trust. Heaven does not reward compromise. It responds to alignment. And what is aligned cannot be poisoned. Purity in this sense is not perfection. It's integrity. It's the ability to say no when yes would have cost you your soul. It's knowing who you are so deeply that no offer can confuse you. God preserved you until systems could no longer control you, until platforms could no longer seduce you, and until money itself lost the power to define you. That's why this increase is different. It doesn't own you. You steward it. And because it was given in trust, it will be sustained by truth. And now this word must move from revelation into rhythm. Because transformation is sustained not by moments of inspiration, but by daily alignment. What God is preparing to release through you requires habits that can hold it. This is where the prophetic becomes practical, where destiny is supported by discipline. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight, but you do need to begin with intention. Start with stillness. Set aside a small protected space each day. 15 minutes is enough, where there is no noise, no scrolling, no performance, just you and God. In that quiet, ask a simple question. What do you want me to carry today? Discernment is born in silence, not in crowds. This daily pause trains your spirit to recognize direction before distraction appears. Next, create room by release. Take a journal and write down what you've been holding that no longer serves where you're going. Old identities, lingering grudges, fears of being seen. What you refuse to release will limit what you can receive. Healing requires honesty, not perfection. And from that place, choose intentional forgiveness. Not reconciliation, not explanation release. Say the name. Bless them. Let the weight go. Freedom is a form of alignment. Then begin to practice stewardship now, not later. Track your generosity no matter how small. Time, kindness, wisdom, resources. Stewardship is a muscle that strengthens with use. God multiplies what he finds moving. Obedience today becomes the seed of overflow tomorrow. These are not habits of hustle. They are habits of trust. And practice consistently. They prepare you for abundance that arrives without crushing the vessel carrying it. And as everything comes into alignment, one final truth must be settled in your spirit before we move into prayer. You were never meant to be the destination of the blessing. You are the pipeline. What God has placed within you is designed to move, to flow, to reach beyond you and into places that have been waiting for restoration. This is what it means to become wealth in motion. Not wealth that sits, stagnates, or exists for display, but wealth that carries purpose wherever it goes. True wealth is not measured by what you spend, but by what you solve. It's found in problems that no longer remain because you showed up prepared. It's seen in systems that function again, families that heal, visions that finally breathe, because provision met obedience. This is why your increase looks different. It's not loud for attention. It's effective for impact. God is shaping you into a vessel capable of carrying generational healing, not just personal success. What flows through you will outlive you. Scripture anchors this truth in Proverbs 10:22. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. This kind of richness doesn't burden the soul or fracture relationships. It restores, it builds, it brings peace alongside provision. And that peace is the confirmation that this increase came from alignment, not striving. You are not becoming rich for the sake of comfort. You are becoming capable for the sake of calling. The blessing is moving toward you because you've been prepared to move it forward. And with that understanding settled, your heart is ready not just to receive, but to steward what heaven is about to release. And now, having understood that you are a pipeline and not a destination, we step into the moment where understanding becomes surrender, and surrender becomes activation. This is the space where words are no longer teaching, but offering, where your heart speaks louder than your plans. Begin by letting gratitude rise, not for the visible victories, but for the hidden seasons that protected you when you didn't yet know how to protect yourself. Thank God for closed doors, delayed answers, obscurity, and silence, because each one preserved your soul from premature exposure and safeguarded the calling entrusted to you. As gratitude softens the ground, allow honesty to surface. This is the moment to confess the doubt you carried quietly, the fear you dressed up as wisdom, and the performance you used to feel worthy. Name it without shame. God is not surprised by your humanity. He is drawn to your truth. And from that place of honesty, release control. Lay down the version of success you tried to manage the identity you tried to maintain, and the ambition that once felt like survival. Surrender is not loss, it is alignment. With empty hands and an open heart, now ask boldly for wisdom that outlives money, discernment that guards influence, and stewardship that honors heaven. Pray not just for increase, but for clarity, timing, and restraint. Declare over your life the promise of Psalm 1:3, that you will be like a tree planted by streams of water, bearing fruit. In season, your leaf not withering, and everything you do prospering in God's order. And finally, make your yes complete. Yes to the calling when it's costly. Yes to the assignment when it's misunderstood. Yes to overflow. That must flow through you, not stop at you. Let this prayer seal what God has been preparing. You are commissioned now, not just to receive, but to release, to build, and to steward what heaven trusts in your hands. And as this journey comes to a close, it does not end. It converges into a moment of agreement, where revelation meets response and hearing becomes participation. What you have received is not entertainment information or inspiration alone. It is an invitation into alignment. Alignment with timing, alignment with purpose, alignment with the stewardship heaven has been patiently preparing you to carry. This is the moment where faith is no longer silent. If this word resonates in your spirit, if it confirms what has been stirring beneath the surface of your life, then declare it plainly, and without hesitation I receive it. Not as wishful thinking, but as conscious agreement with what God has already authored. Let that declaration be a seal. When you speak it, you are not claiming perfection. You are claiming readiness. You are saying yes to continued formation, continued refinement, and continued obedience. And because this journey is not meant to be walked alone, stay connected. Subscribe not merely for more messages, but to remain aligned with reminders that keep your heart calibrated, your vision clean, and your pace steady. Consistency protects calling. As you step forward from this moment, carry this final affirmation with you. You are rooted, not rushed, ready, not reckless, prepared, not premature. Your foundation has been strengthened in secret, your motives purified in waiting, and your capacity expanded through endurance. Go forward with humility and confidence intertwined. What is coming next will require both. Stay planted, stay listening, stay obedient. The journey continues, and you are exactly where you need to be.